My pick for Best Mariah Carey's album is Daydream. Daydream is released in 1995. This album is pop and R&B perfection. With Daydream, Carey took more control over the musical direction and as well as the album's composition. Carey said that she considered Daydream the beginning of her musical and vocal transformation. Daydream is important for contemporary R&B, for incorporation of hip-hop and R&B that was Mariah's strong decision. It revolutionized R&B and its influence can be heard today. The album is sold over 25 million copies. The best Lady Gaga's album is The Fame, released in 2008. Musically, The Fame is electropop, synth-pop, and dance pop that displays influences from 80s music. Lyrically, it visualizes Gaga's love of fame in general, while also dealing with the subjects such as love, sex, money, drugs, and sexual identity. The Fame was a real game changer for pop music, influencing all mainstream artists and their work at the time with a new and fresh sound. The album with its extended play is sold over 20 million copies. My pick for best-selling Dion's album is Falling Into You, released in 1996. Falling Into You presented CELINE at the height of her popularity and showed a further progression of her music. The album combines many elements, ornate orchestral frills, and African chanting, and instruments such as violins, Spanish guitar, trombone, saxophone, and supreme string arrangements, which created a new sound for CELINE. Falling Into You was a huge commercial success with sales of over 32 million copies. The best Beyonce album, in my opinion, is Lemonade, released in 2016. It is Beyonce's second visual album and a concept album with a song cycle that relates Beyonce's emotional journey after her husband's infidelity and in general had a racial context. Primarily, this is an R&B album. Lemonade encompasses a variety of genres including reggae, blues, rock, hip-hop, soul, funk, Americana, country, gospel, electronic, and even trap. It is her most acclaimed studio album of Beyonce's career and marked continued and even greater musical progression and change in her artistry. My pick for the best Janet Jackson album is The Velvet Rope, released in 1997. Its title is a metaphor for emotional boundaries and as well as allusion to an individual's need to feel special. Its lyrics addresses subjects such as depression, self-worth, social networking, and domestic violence. It also encompasses themes of sexuality, including BDSM, sexual orientation, and same-sex relationships. Considered to be Janet Jackson's most mature recording, it is regarded as a template for pop artist transitions to a darker or rebellious sound and as a precursor to development of the alternative R&B. The best Rihanna's album, in my opinion, is Loud, released in 2010. Following domestic violence in her personal life, Rihanna gave us Loud, an album that she wanted to be loud, happy, to shake off bad things, and to make her and her audience feel good about themselves. Loud features up-tempo and pop genres, ranging from R&B and dance pop to electro music, and marks the return to dance hall, a genre prominent on her first two albums. Loud's departure from the personal, melodramatic themes of rated R, Loud is commercially the most successful album in her career. My pick for best Whitney Houston album was her eponymous debut album, released in 1985. Whitney Houston, the album was referred as the foundation of diva pop, giving it a beautifully created and crafted to the pop, dance, R&B melding album and introduced the world to the voice, the octave spinning, gravity-defying melismatic marvel, provided the blueprint for decades of divas that came in the 90s. This is a truly fully rounded record. Whitney's debut album was also a big commercial success, becoming the best-selling female album of the decade and a best-selling studio album in her career. Adele's best album is 21, released in 2011. Composed in the aftermath of the singer's separation from her then partner, the album typifies near dormant tradition of the confessional singer-songwriter in its exploration of heartbeat, introspection, and forgiveness. This is a very personal and emotional album, and Adele channeled her heartbreak and depression and anger into her songs. Critics hailed this album as a shift in music industry from an overtly sexual and musically bombastic status quo, and attributed its success to its deeply autobiographical yet universal songs. The album is sold over 36 million copies. My pick for best Christina Aguilera album is Stripped, released in 2002. Aguilera took creative control over this album project, both musically and lyrically. She also changed her public image and established her alter ego Xtina. Musically, Its music incorporates pop and R&B with influences from many different genres including soul, rock, hip-hop, and Latin music. Lyrically, most of the songs from the album discuss the theme of self-respect, while few other songs talk about sex and feminism. Billboard named Strip as one of the most important albums of the 2000s, noting the cultural and the sonic influence the album had on an array of singers and other artists. Best Taylor Swift album in my opinion is 1989, released in 2014. Taking total control over artistic direction for the first time in her career, Swift named the album 1989 after her birth year and took inspiration from 80s synth pop to create a record that shifted her sound from country-oriented to pop. While the songs are primarily about broken romance, a familiar theme from Swift, they portray light-hearted perspective towards failed relationships, departing from Swift's previous antagonistic attitude. 1989 was a huge success. It also won Album of the Year, making Swift the first female solo artist in history to win Album of the Year twice. My pick for Best Tina Turner's album is of course Private Dancer, released in 1984. A radical departure from rhythm and blues sound, Turner had performed with her former partner Ike Turner. The tracks on the album are a mixture of up-tempos and ballads inspired by pop and rock genres. It also featured elements of smooth jazz and R&B, positively received by critics and released for Turner's ability to give energy and raw emotion to silky produced professional pop rock songs. A landmark in the evolution of pop soul music, Private Dancer is sold over 20 million copies. Best Britney Spears album in my opinion is Blackout, released in 2007. Blackout is primarily dance pop and electropop record with Euro disco and dubstep influences. Lyrical themes revolve around love, fame, media scrutiny, sex and clubbing. The project features more foreboding and atmospheric tone compared to Spears' previous albums. The whole album seems like a birthplace of moody, industrial pop that has become omnispent in 2020, but it flows on an entire underworld of melancholy. But in the same breath, it remains completely unapologetic. My pick for Best Katy Perry album is Teenage Dream, released in 2010. Musically, the record contains songs in the genres of pop and rock and influences of disco, electronic, funk, house, gothic pop, and hip-hop laced throughout the album. Lyrically, it revolves around young love, partying, self-empowerment, and personal growth. Teenage Dream is the second album in history to produce 5 #1 hit singles after Michael Jackson's 1987 album Bad, and the first album by a woman to achieve this milestone. The album was a commercial success and the biggest in her career. My pick for Best Madonna's album is True Blue, released in 1986. True Blue dealt with her vision of love, work, dreams, and as well disappointments, and it was inspired by her then husband Sean Penn. Musically, the songs on the album took a different direction from her previous work, incorporating classical music in order to engage an older audience who had been skeptical about her music. The album features instrumentation from acoustic guitars, drum, synthesizer, and even Cuban musical instruments. The topic for the songs range from love, freedom, social issues such as teenage pregnancy. After its release, True Blue received critical acclaim and was a commercial success with sales of over 25 million copies. Best Ariana Grande's album in my opinion is Thank You Next, released in 2019. Thank You Next was created in the midst of Grande's personal struggles, including that of her ex-boyfriend Mac Miller and her separation from then fiancé Pete Davidson. Upon its release, Thank You Next received universal critical acclaim from musical critics, and it many praising its production and cohesiveness. Musically, Thank You Next is primarily pop record with rap and R&B elements. The album unpacks love, lust, and pain in a metallic pop coding. It is cooler, weirder, and deeper than her previous work. Now tell me, do you agree with my picks, and who would you like to see next in the second part of this video?
If you like this video, be sure to subscribe, follow me on my Instagram account, and support our channel by becoming a patron on Patreon, and with a bunch of rewards help us creating together a great content with your favorite artists. Bye!